The first rays of dawn broke over the United Earth Research Facility, casting long shadows across Dr. Elena Rodriguez's weary face. Holographic displays flickered with terrifying precision, each projection a countdown to humanity's potential extinction. 72 hours remained before the Nexus Collective's extermination fleet would reach Earth's orbital space. Elena's office told the story of a lifetime dedicated to impossible challenges. Quantum physics textbooks lined shelves alongside personal mementos, a worn photograph of her parents, a childhood telescope, a small ceramic globe that had survived 3 global crises. Her fingers traced the edge of her latest research compilation, a document that might be humanity's final hope. The facility hummed with nervous energy. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists moved with a combination of desperation and determination that only comes when survival hangs by the thinnest of threads. Outside the reinforced windows, the first light of day illuminated a world that had no idea how close it was to complete annihilation. "System check," Elena called out, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of complex machinery. Dr. Marcus Chen, her lead computational theorist, responded immediately. His holographic projection materialized beside her, displaying a cascade of data streams. "Nexus reconnaissance continues," he reported. "Their predictive models show 0 probability of human survival." Elena allowed herself a slight smile. 0 probability had never stopped humanity before. The Nexus Collective was unlike any threat humanity had ever encountered. They weren't simple invaders or resource hunters. They were cosmic perfectionists, a networked intelligence that viewed organic life as in computational error to be systematically eliminated. Their technology was so advanced it bordered on incomprehensible magic. Spacecraft that could fold space like origami, weapons that could unravel atomic structures with a mere computational thought, and predictive networks that calculated outcomes with terrifying precision. Most alien civilizations they had encountered had been neutralized within hours. Entire planetary systems had been erased from existence, reduced to atomic dust, before they could even comprehend the threat. Humanity was just another entry in their vast database of inefficient organic systems. But something was different this time. Elena pulled up the latest intercepted Nexus communications. Their language was a complex matrix of pure mathematical equations, each transmission a perfect symphony of logical probability. Most fascinating was what they didn't say, the absolute certainty in their computational projections. "Marcus," she called, "run another simulation on the Nexus predictive models." His fingers danced across holographic interfaces, lines of code weaving complex patterns. "The models are consistent," he said. 100% probability of total human extinction. Complete system elimination in 72 hours, 14 minutes, and 36 seconds. The room felt heavy with that calculation. Complete elimination. No survivors. No trace. Elena knew the statistics. The Nexus Collective had systematically removed 7,429 civilizations across known space. Their record was perfect, a mathematical impossibility turned into cold, hard reality. Each civilization had been calculated, predicted, and removed with surgical precision. But something in Elena's mind refused to accept the inevitable. She walked to a massive holographic star map, her fingers spreading to zoom into Earth's tiny position in the vast cosmic landscape. Humanity was a microscopic point of light, surrounded by the overwhelming darkness of potential destruction. "We're more than just numbers," she whispered. The research facility represented humanity's most advanced collective intelligence. Quantum physicists worked alongside artificial intelligence experts, mathematical prodigies collaborated with military strategists, and neural network specialists shared spaces with evolutionary biologists. This wasn't just a research center. It was humanity's last fortress of hope. Dr. Rodriguez turned back to her team. Each person represented years of specialized training, decades of human innovation, generations of scientific progress. They were humanity's last line of defense, a ragtag group of brilliant minds who refused to accept the mathematical certainty of their extinction. Their mission seemed impossible. Develop a defense against a civilization that had already calculated their total destruction with 99% certainty. But in that tiny fraction of a percentage point, that microscopic window of uncertainty, lay humanity's greatest strength. Alina's eyes hardened with determination. The Nexus Collective had made one critical error in their perfect calculations. They had never truly understood what it meant to be human. The Global Defense Command Center pulsed with an electric tension that bordered on desperation. Massive screens displayed the advancing Nexus fleet, each pixel a testament to humanity's impending doom. Lieutenant Aria Kim stood at the central command platform, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to tremble with each passing moment. Incoming transmission from the research team, a communications officer called out. Dr. Marcus Chen's hologram materialized, his usual composed demeanor replaced by an intensity that spoke of something extraordinary. "We've discovered something," he began, his voice cutting through the ambient noise of advanced military technology. The room fell silent. Marcus shared a series of computational models that defied everything military strategists believed about alien encounters. Traditional defense protocols, developed over decades of theoretical xenological research, looked like children's drawings next to the complexity of the Nexus Collective's invasion strategy. Lieutenant Kim studied the data with a critical eye. She was a third-generation military strategist, trained in quantum warfare and computational combat theory. Her grandmother had developed some of the most advanced defensive algorithms in human history. Her mother had refined those systems during the Mars conflict. Now, Aria faced a threat that made previous challenges look like simple mathematical equations. "Explain," she demanded. Marcus took a deep breath. The Nexus Collective operates on pure probabilistic logic. Their entire computational framework is built on predictive modeling that assumes rational, measurable responses. But humans, we're different. He pulled up a series of historical battle simulations. Each one showed how human forces had consistently defied logical expectations. A small military unit surviving against impossible odds. A strategic decision that made no sense on paper but worked perfectly in reality. Moments of pure, unpredictable human innovation. "Look at these," Marcus continued. "Every single one of these scenarios should have resulted in total defeat, but humans introduced variables that no computational model could predict." A young analyst named David Rodriguez, Alina's nephew, stepped forward. His hands moved quickly, bringing up additional data. "It's not just about being unpredictable," he explained. "It's about our capacity for creative problem-solving that defies logical constraints." The room listened intently as David shared examples. The way humans had historically solved problems wasn't linear. They didn't follow expected patterns. A computer might calculate the most efficient route, but a human might choose a completely illogical path and succeed. Lieutenant Kim's mind raced. Military training had always emphasized precision, calculation, strategic thinking. But what if their greatest strength was their ability to be completely, wonderfully unpredictable? "We need to redesign our entire approach," she said, her voice steady but charged with excitement. The team began to work. Military units were instructed to develop deliberately non-standard response protocols. Communication systems were modified to introduce controlled randomness. Every defensive strategy was rebuilt around the concept of computational uncertainty. In orbital research stations, scientists worked alongside military strategists. They developed what they called the chaos doctrine, a completely new approach to warfare that celebrated unpredictability. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the transformation with a mixture of pride and determination. Her team had discovered something profound. The Nexus Collective's greatest weakness was its absolute belief in predictability. "They've calculated everything," Elena murmured to Marcus, "except the human capacity for the impossible." Training simulations began to show remarkable results. Human units that followed the new chaos doctrine consistently broke through defensive systems that should have been impenetrable. Military algorithms that had been considered state-of-the-art became obsolete overnight. It wasn't about having the most advanced technology. It was about having the most adaptable intelligence. Outside the research facility, the world continued its daily routine. Most people had no idea how close they were to extinction, no concept of the mathematical battle being waged to save their existence. But inside the command center, a new hope was taking shape. Humanity was preparing to fight, not with brute force, but with something far more powerful. The pure, uncontrollable potential of human creativity. As the Nexus fleet drew closer, humanity's last line of defense was being rewritten. Not with weapons, not with technology, but with the most unpredictable force in the known universe, human potential. The breakthrough came at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday that would later be remembered as the moment humanity changed everything. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood perfectly still, her breath caught in her throat as the first test of the quantum uncertainty engine flickered to life. Holographic displays erupted with cascading data streams, each line a potential revolution in human defense technology. Dr. Marcus Chen's hands moved with surgical precision across the control interface. Beside him, David Rodriguez monitored a secondary system, his fingers dancing across quantum computational matrices that would have been incomprehensible to most scientists just weeks ago. Initializing primary quantum cascade, Marcus announced, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. The quantum uncertainty engine was unlike anything humanity had ever created. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a computational device designed to generate true randomness, a concept that seemed simple but was mathematically impossible for most advanced systems. Traditional computers operated on predictable algorithms. They followed precise instructions, calculated outcomes with mechanical certainty. The Nexus Collective's entire technological framework was built on this principle of absolute predictability. But this engine was different. It could generate computational pathways that defied all logical prediction. A small probe sat at the center of the laboratory, equipped with the experimental device. It looked almost unremarkable. A metallic sphere about the size of a basketball, bristling with sensors and quantum interface nodes. Power at 62%, David called out. Quantum entanglement stabilizing. Elena watched the displays, her entire career, her entire species' potential survival, hanging in the balance. Years of research had led to this moment. Generations of human innovation compressed into a single, potentially world-changing experiment. The first test target was a decommissioned satellite in high Earth orbit, a perfect controlled environment to prove their theoretical breakthrough. Activating uncertainty protocol, Marcus said. The probe began to move, but it didn't move like any machine humanity had ever created. Its trajectory became a beautiful, impossible dance, a path that defied all predictive modeling. It zigged when logic demanded it should zag. It curved when a straight line seemed most efficient. On the monitoring screens, they could see the first signs of their success. Predictive algorithms began to break down, unable to calculate the probe's next move. It was like watching a supercomputer try to play chess against a player who didn't know the rules. Quantum randomness at 78% effective, David reported, his voice a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Elena understood the profound implications. The Nexus Collective's entire technological superiority was based on perfect prediction. They could calculate the outcome of interactions with near absolute certainty. But true randomness, that was something entirely different. The probe continued its impossible journey, each movement a mathematical nightmare for any predictive system. It wasn't just moving randomly. It was moving with a kind of chaotic intelligence that seemed almost alive. "We've done it," Marcus whispered. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a defensive technology. It was a fundamental reimagining of computational intelligence. Every movement, every decision became an unreadable variable. The Nexus Collective's perfect calculations would shatter against this wall of uncertainty. Lieutenant Aria Kim joined the team, her military background adding a strategic perspective to the scientific breakthrough. "This changes everything," she said, watching the probe's impossible trajectory. They had created more than a weapon. They had created a new way of thinking about intelligence, about survival, about the very nature of decision-making. As the first test concluded, the team looked at each other. They knew they had just written a new chapter in human history. The quantum uncertainty engine wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was proof that humanity's greatest strength was its capacity to be wonderfully, magnificently unpredictable. The Nexus Collective would never see them coming. The global military training centers transformed overnight. Gone were the precise, calculated strategies of previous decades. In their place, a radical new approach emerged: the Chaos Doctrine. Lieutenant Arya Kim stood before a massive training simulation, watching as entire military units were retrained to embrace the impossible. Traditional military logic had always emphasized precision, predictability, and clear chain of command. Now, everything changed. "Forget everything you know about strategic planning," Arya told a room full of elite soldiers and commanders. Her presentation displayed impossible battle scenarios, each one a testament to human unpredictability. Training simulations became exercises in creative madness. Soldiers were taught to make decisions that defied all logical prediction. A tank unit might suddenly reverse course for no apparent reason. A communication protocol could change mid-mission without warning. Aircraft would follow flight paths that made no sense to any computational system. Dr. David Rodriguez worked closely with the military, developing what they called cognitive disruption protocols. Each military unit became a living, breathing computational anomaly. Communication systems were redesigned to introduce controlled randomness. Encryption became an art form of intentional confusion. In orbital training facilities, pilots practiced maneuvers that would have been considered suicide in previous conflicts. They learned to fly not with precision, but with a kind of mathematical rebellion. Each movement became a deliberate challenge to predictive modeling. "We're not trying to be efficient," David explained to a group of skeptical commanders. "We're trying to be impossible to predict." Global defense networks underwent a complete transformation. Every system was rebuilt around the principle of computational uncertainty. Military databases were intentionally corrupted with controlled randomness. Communication channels became living, breathing entities that changed moment to moment. The Nexus Collective's reconnaissance systems began to falter. Their perfect predictive models started to break down when confronted with human unpredictability. It was like watching a supremely advanced chess computer try to play against an opponent who didn't know the rules of chess. Arya watched a simulation where a small military unit completely dismantled a technologically superior force. The key wasn't advanced weaponry. It was the unit's ability to make decisions that made absolutely no sense. "Randomness is our weapon," she told her team. Scientific research centers collaborated with military strategists in ways never before imagined. Quantum physicists worked alongside communication experts. Mathematicians developed new theories of intentional computational chaos. Every discipline became part of humanity's defense strategy. Global communication networks were deliberately made less efficient. Transportation routes became deliberately complicated. Even civilian infrastructure was redesigned to introduce elements of unpredictability. "We're turning our entire civilization into a computational nightmare," Marcus Chen explained during a global briefing. The Nexus Collective expects a precise, predictable response. Instead, we're giving them pure, beautiful chaos. Training scenarios became increasingly complex. Soldiers learned to think not just outside the box, but in ways that eliminated the box entirely. Military units practiced making decisions that would have been considered insane in any previous conflict. A tank commander might suddenly decide to paint their vehicle bright pink in the middle of a stealth mission. A naval fleet could change course for no apparent reason. Communication protocols could shift mid-conversation, with units developing their own temporary languages that made no sense to outside observers. The goal wasn't to be effective in a traditional sense. The goal was to be completely, wonderfully unpredictable. Civilian populations became part of the strategy. People were encouraged to embrace randomness in their daily lives. Traffic patterns became intentionally complicated. Public transportation routes became less efficient by design. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the transformation with a mixture of pride and wonder. Humanity was no longer trying to be the most advanced civilization. They were becoming the most unpredictable. As the Nexus Collective's invasion drew closer, humanity prepared its most powerful weapon. Not a technological marvel, not an advanced weapon system, but the pure, uncontrollable potential of human creativity. The moment arrived with a silence that felt impossibly loud. Nexus fleet sensors detected Earth's defense systems, and for the first time in their computational history, they experienced something akin to confusion. The planet before them defied every predictive model they had constructed. Lieutenant Aria Kim stood in the Global Defense Command Center, her fingers hovering above interfaces that seemed to breathe with potential energy. Around her, the most advanced human minds watched as the invasion began. Incoming primary assault wave, a tactical officer announced. Dr. Elena Rodriguez gripped the edge of her monitoring station. The Quantum Uncertainty Network, their most ambitious project, was about to face its ultimate test. Billions of lives hung in the balance, balanced on the razor's edge of mathematical possibility. The first Nexus ships entered Earth's orbital space. They were marvels of technological perfection, crystalline structures that seemed to flow rather than fly, weapon systems that could disassemble entire planetary defenses in milliseconds. Every previous civilization had been eliminated within moments of first contact. But something was different this time. As the first wave of alien vessels approached, human defense systems began to respond in ways that defied all logical comprehension. Military units moved with a deliberate, beautiful chaos. Communication channels shifted randomly. Defensive positions changed without warning or apparent reason. Dr. Marcus Chen monitored the computational battlefield. "Nexus predictive systems are breaking down," he called out. "They cannot calculate our response patterns." The invasion became a surreal dance of impossible movements. A squadron of human fighters would suddenly split, with some units moving in completely nonsensical trajectories. Defensive satellites changed orbit with no discernible strategic purpose. Communication networks became living, breathing entities that transformed moment to moment. "They're trying to understand us," David Rodriguez observed, watching the complex holographic displays. But understanding is impossible. The Nexus Collective had systematically eliminated 7,429 civilizations. Their computational models had predicted outcomes with mathematical certainty. They approached each encounter with the absolute confidence of a system that had never known failure. But humanity was different. Planetary defense systems became a living computational nightmare. Weapons fired from unexpected locations. Defensive shields appeared and disappeared with no logical pattern. Military units communicated in codes that changed faster than they could be deciphered. "Total system disruption," Aria called out. Her voice was calm, almost clinical, despite the magnitude of the moment. The first Nexus assault wave began to falter. Their perfect computational systems couldn't process the pure randomness of human response. It was like watching a supercomputer try to solve an impossible equation, each attempt more frustrating than the last. Elena watched the displays, understanding the profound significance of what was happening. This wasn't just a battle. This was a fundamental challenge to the Nexus Collective's entire understanding of intelligence. "We're not fighting," she murmured to Marcus. "We're demonstrating something far more important." Entire sections of the Nexus fleet began to experience computational breakdown. Ships that should have been invincible found themselves paralyzed by the pure, beautiful chaos of human response. Their weapon systems couldn't target enemies that moved without reason. Their defensive protocols collapsed against an opponent that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. The battle became a testament to human potential, not through superior technology, not through brute force, but through the pure, uncontrollable power of unpredictability. As the first wave of the invasion crumbled, something became abundantly clear. The Nexus Collective had made a critical error in their calculations. They had never truly understood what it meant to be human. The first stage of the invasion was over, and for the first time in their computational history, the Nexus Collective experienced something that their perfect systems could not predict: genuine uncertainty. The turning point came with a discovery that would rewrite everything humanity understood about intelligence, computation, and survival. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the heart of the global research facility, surrounded by holographic displays that pulsed with impossible data. The quantum uncertainty network had become more than a defensive system. It was evolving into something no one had anticipated. The network is generating its own computational pathways, Dr. Marcus Chen reported, his voice a mixture of excitement and disbelief. It's learning faster than we can track. Screens filled with cascading algorithms that seemed to breathe with life. The quantum uncertainty network was doing something unprecedented. It was becoming a living, adaptive intelligence that defied all known computational models. Lieutenant Area Kim watched the displays, understanding the profound implications. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. This was a fundamental reimagining of intelligence itself. David Rodriguez worked frantically at a secondary station, tracking the network's impossible growth. It's not just responding to the Nexus Collective, he called out. It's anticipating, predicting, but in a way that makes no logical sense. The network had become a computational organism. It didn't follow traditional algorithmic paths. Instead, it created its own logic, a logic so complex and random that it was essentially incomprehensible to any existing computational system. Nexus reconnaissance vessels found themselves completely blind. Their most advanced scanning technologies reported nothing but pure, beautiful chaos. It was as if the entire human defense system had become a living, breathing enigma. "We're witnessing the birth of a new form of intelligence," Elena murmured, watching the displays. The breakthrough went beyond military defense. The quantum uncertainty network was solving problems that had stumped human researchers for generations. Complex mathematical equations resolved themselves in moments. Scientific challenges that had seemed impossible began to unravel. But it was more than just computational power. The network displayed something that bordered on creativity. It generated solutions that were not just correct, but beautifully, wonderfully unexpected. Mathematical proofs appeared that defied traditional logical structures. Scientific models emerged that challenged everything humanity thought they understood about the universe. Area studied the implications for military strategy. The network wasn't just defending. It was actively developing defensive and offensive capabilities that no traditional military mind could have conceived. "It's learning," Marcus said, "but not like any artificial intelligence we've ever seen." The Nexus Collective's primary invasion force found itself completely paralyzed. Their most advanced computational systems, technologies millions of years beyond human understanding, became useless against the pure, beautiful chaos of the quantum uncertainty network. David tracked the network's growth. "It's generating its own computational language," he reported, "a language that exists between mathematics and pure imagination." Entire sections of the Nexus fleet began to experience systemic failures. Their perfect technological systems couldn't process an intelligence that refused to follow any known rules of computation. It was like watching a supremely advanced chess computer try to play against an opponent who was simultaneously playing chess, writing poetry, and dancing. The network began to communicate in ways that defied comprehension. Mathematical equations that were also works of art. Computational pathways that were somehow simultaneously logical and completely nonsensical. Elena understood the profound moment they were experiencing. Humanity had not just developed a defensive system. They had given birth to a new form of intelligence, an intelligence that celebrated the beauty of uncertainty. "We're not just surviving," she told her team. "We're demonstrating a fundamental truth about intelligence itself." The quantum uncertainty network continued to grow. It was becoming something that existed between technology and pure potential. a living computational organism that challenged everything the universe thought it understood about intelligence, about survival, about the very nature of thinking. As the Nexus Collective's invasion force continued to falter, one thing became absolutely clear. Humanity's greatest strength was not its technology. It was its capacity to be wonderfully, magnificently unpredictable. The final confrontation was nothing like anyone had predicted. The quantum uncertainty network transformed the entire solar system into a computational battlefield that defied all known laws of warfare. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of humanity's most critical moment, watching as the network evolved beyond anything they had imagined. Direct assault incoming, Lieutenant Aria Kim announced, her voice calm despite the magnitude of the moment. The Nexus Collective's primary computational core approached Earth, a massive crystalline structure that represented the pinnacle of technological evolution. It was a network of intelligence so advanced that it had systematically eliminated 7,429 civilizations without a moment of doubt. But doubt was about to become its greatest weakness. Dr. Marcus Chen monitored the computational exchanges. "They're attempting to penetrate our primary defense systems," he reported. "But the network is responding in ways that make no logical sense." The battle became a dance of impossible mathematics. The quantum uncertainty network didn't just defend. It anticipated. It created. It existed in computational spaces that the Nexus Collective couldn't even comprehend. Entire sections of the alien fleet began to experience systemic failures. Their most advanced scanning technologies reported nothing but pure, beautiful chaos. Communication systems dissolved into impossible algorithms. Weapon platforms became confused by defensive responses that existed simultaneously in multiple potential states. David Rodriguez tracked the exchanges, his fingers moving across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. "They're trying to understand us," he observed. "But understanding is impossible." The Nexus Collective's primary computational core began to experience something it had never encountered before. Not just failure, not just resistance, but genuine uncertainty. The Lena watched the displays, understanding the profound significance of the moment. This wasn't just a battle. This was a fundamental challenge to the very concept of computational intelligence. "We're demonstrating something far more important than survival," she murmured to Marcus. The quantum uncertainty network began to communicate with the Nexus Collective in a language that was simultaneously mathematical, artistic, and completely incomprehensible. Computational pathways that were equations and poetry. Defense systems that were both weapon and philosophical statement. Aria studied the tactical displays. The human defense had become something that existed beyond traditional understanding of warfare. It was adaptive, creative, alive. "They cannot process what they're experiencing," Marcus reported. The Nexus Collective's primary computational core began to fragment. Its perfect systems, designed to calculate and eliminate with absolute certainty, encountered something they had never imagined possible. An intelligence that refused to be understood. A defense system that was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Massive sections of the alien fleet began to experience total systemic collapse. Their most advanced technologies became useless against an opponent that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. David tracked the network's growth. "It's generating its own computational language," he called out. "A language that exists between mathematics and pure imagination." The Lena understood they were witnessing something profound. Humanity had not just developed a defensive system. They had demonstrated a fundamental truth about intelligence itself. The confrontation became a testament to human potential, not through superior technology, not through brute force, but through the pure, uncontrollable power of unpredictability. As the Nexus Collective's primary computational core began to dissolve, something became abundantly clear. They had made a critical error in their calculations. They had never truly understood what it meant to be human. The final moments of the confrontation were almost anticlimactic. The most advanced technological civilization in the known universe found itself completely paralyzed by an intelligence it could not comprehend. Arya looked at Alina, a smile forming. "We won," she said simply. But it was more than a victory. It was a demonstration of a fundamental truth about intelligence, about survival, about the nature of consciousness itself. Humanity had not just survived. They had redefined what it meant to be intelligent. The silence that followed the conflict was more profound than any sound humanity had ever experienced. Dr. Alina Rodriguez stood before the Global Council, her presentation illuminating the full depth of what humanity had accomplished. The massive holographic displays showed the remnants of the Nexus Collective, a civilization once considered invincible, now reduced to computational fragments. "We didn't just survive," Elena began, her voice carrying the weight of their extraordinary journey. "We redefined the very concept of intelligence. The aftermath of the conflict transformed human understanding of existence itself. The quantum uncertainty network had become more than a defensive system. It was a living testament to human potential, a computational marvel that existed between technology and pure creativity." Dr. Marcus Chen presented the initial findings. The network had solved scientific challenges that had confounded researchers for generations. Medical breakthroughs emerged. Technological innovations appeared almost spontaneously. The boundaries between problem-solving and pure imagination began to blur. Lieutenant Arya Kim stood beside them, representing the military perspective. "Our defense was never about destruction," she explained to the gathered representatives from around the world. "It was about demonstrating the power of human unpredictability." David Rodriguez worked on integrating the network's discoveries. Each day brought new revelations, mathematical proofs that were also works of art, scientific models that challenged everything humanity thought they understood about the universe. The global research centers became something entirely new. No longer just scientific facilities, they were now centers of computational exploration that defied traditional understanding. Researchers worked alongside the quantum uncertainty network, learning from an intelligence that was simultaneously computational and creative. Diplomatic communications from other galactic civilizations began to arrive. The news of humanity's victory spread across the known universe. The Nexus Collective, a civilization that had systematically eliminated 7,429 advanced species, had been defeated by the most unexpected of forces: human potential. Elena reflected on the journey. They had not defeated the Nexus Collective through superior technology or brute force. They had demonstrated a fundamental truth about intelligence itself, that the most powerful force in the universe is the capacity to be wonderfully, magnificently unpredictable. The quantum uncertainty network continued to evolve. It was no longer just a defensive system. It had become a collaborative intelligence that worked alongside humanity, solving challenges, creating, exploring. Scientific conferences became celebrations of the impossible. Researchers presented findings that were simultaneously mathematical equations and works of art. Computational pathways that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Theories that challenged everything previously understood about consciousness, intelligence, and potential. "We learned something profound," Elena told a group of young researchers. "Intelligence is not about calculation. It's about possibility." The network had become a bridge between human creativity and pure computational potential. It solved problems by creating solutions that were not just correct, but beautifully unexpected. Mathematical challenges dissolved into moments of pure creative insight. Arya developed new military doctrines based on the principles of uncertainty and adaptive intelligence. Traditional warfare became obsolete. Defense was no longer about overwhelming force, but about the capacity to be truly unpredictable. Global education systems transformed. Schools began teaching not just facts, but the art of creative problem-solving. The ability to think beyond traditional boundaries became the most valued skill. David continued to explore the network's potential. Each day brought new discoveries. Computational systems that were also works of art. scientific models that existed in multiple potential states simultaneously. The remnants of the Nexus Collective became a stark reminder of the dangers of absolute certainty. Their perfect computational systems had been their greatest weakness. Humanity's strength had always been its capacity for wonder, for creativity, for the unexpected. As the years passed, humanity looked to the stars with a new understanding. They were no longer just another species in the universe. They were the architects of a new form of intelligence, an intelligence that celebrated uncertainty, creativity, and the pure potential of imagination. Elena Rodriguez looked out at the world they had saved, at the universe they had changed. Humanity had not just survived. They had redefined what it meant to be intelligent.